Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. I was shoved so hard that I almost fell to the ground. Emma, I've told you I don't like you. Stop giving me things. From now on, I don't want people to misunderstand our relationship. Following me around all day like this makes you look undignified. Don't you even know what self-respect means? I studied myself and looked up to see the man in front of me. It was Liam Miller, a man in his early 20s. He was wearing clothes so faded they had turned pale, with several large patches on his pants. He was no longer the polished, suit-wearing man I remembered. At that moment, I realized I had been reborn. As I came back to my senses, I noticed I was holding a Shanghai brand fountain pen in my hand. It was a gift I had bought to win over Liam Miller. Seeing me silent, he frowned impatiently and glanced at the pen in my hand. Fine, I'll reluctantly accept this gift, he said. But I'm warning you, don't bother me again after this. Before I could react, he reached out, trying to take the pen from my hand. I laughed, not out of joy, but from sheer anger and disbelief. I laughed at his shamelessness, at how he could sponge off others with such arrogance, and I laughed at my past self, blind enough to fall for someone so useless, someone who ultimately ruined my life. Just as his hand was about to grab the pen, I swiftly pulled it back and stuffed it into my pocket. If you don't like it, don't take it. There's no need to force yourself. In my past life, Liam had accepted this pen only to complain endlessly about how much he hated my gifts. Yet he used this very pen every day. The other young intellectuals had speculated about his family's wealth based on the pen's value, showering him with admiration and feeding his vanity. I foolishly had thought his disdain was just shyness, and had gone on to give him even more expensive gifts. He accepted every single one. After I put the pen away, he froze in place, his hands still outstretched in anger. Subconsciously he muttered, "You're just playing hard to get." I sneered, "You're overthinking it. I just realized I don't like you anymore. Don't worry, I won't bother you again." With that, I turned to leave. He quickly grabbed my arm and glanced at my pocket where the pen was. His tone softened. "Emma, I was too harsh earlier. That was my fault. It's just that we've only known each other for a short time. And you've been following me around every day. It doesn't look good." Before I could respond, another voice called out from the corner of the road. "Liam, the team leader has been looking everywhere for you." It was Olivia Parker. Liam flinched, quickly letting go of my arm, and taking a few steps back to put distance between us. He turned to look at Olivia, his ears gradually turning red. "Olivia, Emma insisted on giving me a gift. I've already refused her several times, but she keeps following me. I just can't get rid of her," he explained hastily. Olivia walked over with a gentle smile, though it didn't reach her eyes. "Liam, you're a man. You don't understand girls. Let me talk to Emma. The team leader is in a hurry to see you. You should go." Liam nodded and shot me a warning glare before leaving. Olivia's smile remained as she turned to me, but her tone carried a sharp undertone. "Emma, Liam will definitely go back to the city someday. He won't stay here for you. Don't waste your time on him anymore." In my past life, I hadn't caught the hidden meaning behind her words. I had naively thought she was giving me sincere advice. This time, I wasn't so foolish. I knew Liam often sold the gifts I gave him to buy things for Olivia. She, in turn, believed his family was wealthy and eagerly clung to him. "You don't need to worry," I said calmly but firmly. "I don't like him anymore." I couldn't be bothered to argue with her, so I brushed her off with a nonchalant response and walked away quickly. "Emma, you'd better stick to your word," Liam called out, his voice trailing after me as I left. When I returned to the factory, I changed into my work uniform and resumed my shift. But by the time my shift ended, I realized the fountain pen in my pocket was gone. Sister Clara, one of my coworkers, noticed me rummaging through my locker and casually remarked, "Emma, that boy you like, Liam, came by looking for you this afternoon." There had been times in the past when I'd been too busy to step away, so I'd instructed Liam to grab gifts for me from my locker. But I never thought he'd have the audacity to take something without asking. This time, seething with anger, I went straight to Liam's house with a village official. When we arrived, Liam was sitting at his desk, carefully tracing calligraphy strokes with the fountain pen. "Liam Miller, we've received a report that you stole Emma's fountain pen," the official said. Liam's face twisted into an expression of faint innocence. "I didn't steal it. She insisted on giving it to me." I stared at him coldly, my gaze moving from the pen in his hand to his face. "When exactly did I give it to you? That pen was in my locker, inside my clothes. You took it without permission." He hesitated for a moment, furrowing his brows. "Is this because I turned you down? Do you really have to go so far as to accuse me of theft out of spite? You can't let rejection turn into hatred. That's not something I can handle." I was stunned by his shamelessness. It was far beyond anything I could have imagined. The official, looking uncertain, turned to me. "Emma, everyone in the village knows you have feelings for Liam. Could this be a misunderstanding?" Yes, I had once been completely transparent about my feelings for Liam. Everyone knew I liked him, but that didn't give him the right to take my things as if they were his. I stared at him coldly. "Liam, what exactly is our relationship?" "Emma," he blurted out, "I've already told you I don't like you." I let out a scornful laugh. "If you don't like me, then why did you keep accepting my gifts? And why do you always act like you're being forced to take them, only to use them so freely afterward?" With that, I stepped forward and snatched the fountain pen from his hand. "Since you've been so clear about your rejection, why don't you return all the gifts I've given you? That way, no one will have room to gossip about you being a freeloading pretty boy." Liam's face turned a mix of red and white as he stood there speechless, watching me rummage through his room. Over the past few months, I had given him so many gifts that I couldn't carry them all with 2 hands. The village official even helped me gather them. Liam's family was poor, and the only reason he could live comfortably in the village was because of my financial support. If it hadn't been for my money, he wouldn't have compromised and married me in our previous life, hoping to secure his future. As I stepped out of his doorway with my reclaimed belongings, I suddenly stopped and turned back. Liam's eyes lit up briefly, and he let out a dramatic sigh, pretending to be regretful. "Emma, what's the point of making such a big scene? Even if I've rejected you, we can still be friends, can't we?" Ignoring his theatrics, I walked past him, grabbed the chair by his desk, and said, "This chair was broken, and you took one from my house. Isn't it about time you return it too?" Without waiting for his response, I left without looking back. I sold all the gifts I had reclaimed, and along with the money I had saved at home, I managed to gather a total of 1,000 yuan. All of this was the inheritance left to me by my parents before they passed away. If I lived quietly and within my means, this money would be enough to support me for the rest of my life. However, after everything I went through in my previous life, my ambitions now extended far beyond mere stability. I knew that over the coming decades, the nation's economy would undergo a dramatic transformation. As long as I was willing to work hard and keep my feet on the ground, I'd have the chance to achieve incredible wealth. In my past life, I had squandered my money and energy helping Liam Miller become one of the wealthiest men in the area. This time, I was determined to stay far away from Liam and Olivia Parker, focusing on my own endeavors to achieve financial independence. The next morning, I submitted my resignation letter at the factory. I had decided to go to the city to start a business. Our village was remote, and the bus to the city ran only on weekends, taking 6 hours to get there. That meant I had to stay in the village for 3 more days before I could leave. On Wednesday evening, villagers began gathering at the square with their stools. It was movie night. I was watching the film intently when Liam somehow managed to sit down beside me without my noticing. He slipped a piece of candy into my hand and said, "Still mad at me?" I glared at him, tossing the candy back into his lap. "Comrade Liam, we're not close. You'd better keep your distance from me. It wouldn't do for Olivia to misunderstand." Liam wasn't annoyed by my tone. Instead, he shamelessly scooted closer. "Emma, I know you're just throwing a tantrum. How about this? If you buy me a Phoenix brand bike, I'll consider dating you." A Phoenix brand bicycle costs nearly 200 yuan. Liam was so confident in my supposed love for him that he didn't believe I was truly over him. He thought my behavior was just me acting out, which gave him the audacity to make such an outrageous demand. In my previous life, I had caved to his manipulative tactics and bought him the bicycle, but once he had it, there was never a spot for me. The seat on the back of his bicycle was always reserved for Olivia. Thinking about that, I raised my voice sharply. Comrade Liam, I'm really not interested in you. Please stop pestering me. If you truly want a bicycle, then work for it and earn the money yourself instead of coveting a woman's savings. My voice rose above the background noise of the movie, drawing the attention of the surrounding villagers. People began whispering, clearly entertained by the commotion. Liam froze, his face turning bright red in embarrassment. He glanced around nervously until his eyes landed on Olivia. In a panic, he stood up and loudly accused me. Emma, stop spouting nonsense. You're the one who's been chasing me around. Everyone knows you're like a leech sticking to me every day. Who said I wanted you to buy me a bicycle? You must have misheard. What I said was that I'm planning to buy a bicycle myself, and you're not allowed to ride it. I sneered. Well then, I look forward to seeing your new bicycle. The crowd murmured among themselves. A Phoenix bicycle costs nearly 200 yuan. Liam must really be doing well. Didn't you hear people say Liam's family in the city is wealthy? As I walked away, leaving him with a sour expression, I couldn't help but laugh. The next day, I rallied the entire village to visit the educated youth center where Liam was staying, all to see his brand new bicycle. When Liam saw our group approaching, he came out the door, his face pale with anxiety. After racking his brain for an excuse, he finally stammered. I thought about it all night and decided not to buy the bicycle. I can't stand out like that. I need to share in the struggles and hardships of the community. I came here to help build a better countryside, not to enjoy a life of luxury. We must embrace the spirit of endurance and hard work to pursue a better tomorrow. Liam's words moved many in the crowd. They clapped and praised his noble ideals and high moral awareness. Turning to me, he began to criticize. Emma, you're so careless with money. You've completely abandoned the spirit of hard work and thrift. You don't resemble a progressive young person at all. I suggest you hand over your money to me for safekeeping. That way, you won't squander it and ruin your future. I hadn't expected his greed for my money to run this deep. Suppressing a laugh, I nodded repeatedly, feigning agreement. Liam, your sense of responsibility is truly remarkable. In fact, everyone in our village should trust you with their money, so you can lead us all in enduring hardship together. Some people caught the sarcasm in my tone and couldn't help but laugh. Liam's face turned livid, and he gritted his teeth. Emma, you'll regret this later. I heard that Olivia had been furious with Liam for days, because he didn't buy the bicycle. Liam, in turn, directed his frustration at me and greeted me with a sour expression whenever we crossed paths. The day before I was set to leave, I went to the small shop at the village entrance to buy some gifts. Ever since my parents passed away 3 years ago, the neighbors have been kind to me, inviting me to their homes during festivals and sharing their best things with me. Before leaving, I wanted to bid farewell and thank them. As I carried the gifts home, I ran into Liam, who was returning from work. Seeing the gifts in my arms, he immediately assumed they were for him. His face turned cold. Emma, don't think giving me a few things will make me forgive your previous nonsense. I used to consider marrying you because of your sincerity, but now I'd never marry a country woman like you. I placed the gifts on the ground, stepped forward, and yanked at his shirt with force. The fabric tore instantly, leaving his clothes in shreds. Covering himself, Liam shouted angrily. Emma, what are you doing in broad daylight? I sneered. Since you look down on me as a country woman, then don't wear the clothes I made for you. I know you've always despised me as a bumpkin. If it weren't for the things I kept giving you, you wouldn't even bother speaking to me. You look down on me but crave my money. Even if you were to marry me in the end, it would only be for the money. I fixed him with a cold glare. Liam, there are plenty of men in this world, and I don't need you. But you can't keep taking advantage of me while badmouthing me behind my back. That's not how a decent person behaves. Flushed with embarrassment and anger, Liam stammered. Emma, stop making baseless accusations. I never wanted your money. I waved off his excuses. I'm not interested in arguing with you. You know what you really think deep down. You don't need to explain it to me. I stepped past him without looking back. After delivering the gifts to the neighbors and bidding them farewell, I returned home to finish packing my belongings. That night, I went to bed early. The next morning, I boarded the bus. As I gazed out the window at the passing scenery, my nose stung, and tears rolled down my cheeks despite my efforts to hold them back. At that moment, I truly said goodbye to my former self. From this day forward, I would begin writing a new chapter in my life. The bus bumped along for 6 hours before finally arriving at the city center. In my previous life, during the reform and opening up era, when many educated youths returned to the cities, I had come here with Liam to chase a better future and support his business dreams. I had poured all my savings into our efforts together. We rented a small storefront and started a clothing business. The city was bustling with young people in this era. Everyone loved to dress up. Starting with just a small storefront, our business grew. We steadily opened more branches, established our own clothing brand, and eventually built a factory and a company of our own. This time, I planned to start with clothing again. It was the only business I truly knew. With the experience from my previous life, I could avoid many pitfalls. This time, I began by renting a shop front near the busiest pedestrian street and giving it a simple renovation. Then, I spent a week traveling back and forth by train to a port city to purchase goods. The clothes there were fashionable and affordable, far beyond what you could find in a small city like ours. I decided to focus solely on women's clothing. No matter the era, women's money was always the easiest to earn. I curated complete outfits for sale, sparing customers the trouble of figuring out how to mix and match pieces themselves. I named my store Emma's Boutique. On the first day of business, the crowd of young women almost wore out the threshold of my store. They raved about how stylish the clothes were, and how each outfit was put together in a way that caught their eyes. They scrambled to grab the items, afraid that hesitating for even a moment would mean losing out to someone else. Every day, my store was packed with customers. I was so busy that I hired a young assistant to help manage the shop. Twice a month, I would travel to the port city to restock inventory. Although running the store was exhausting, the joy of making money made it all worthwhile. In my previous life, I had worked tirelessly in the store while Liam only handled the bookkeeping. Because I trusted him, I never questioned the accounts, only knowing that we were earning a lot of money without ever seeing the exact numbers. Later, as our business expanded into a full-fledged company, Liam persuaded me to step back from management, claiming he was worried about my well-being. With full control of our finances, he used the money to build a second life with Olivia and their illegitimate child. I didn't find out until my death that all the money I had earned was spent on them. Now, as I stared at the mountain of cash in front of me, I couldn't help but laugh. So, this is what it feels like to hold your hard-earned money in your own hands. After tallying the accounts, I paid my assistant her wages along with a bonus. Overjoyed, she thanked me 5 times. 2 months later, I had just gotten off the train and was moving the newly arrived stock to the store when my assistant came to me, her face twisted in frustration. Emma, a new clothing store opened across the street called Olivia's Boutique. Their prices are half of ours, and our loyal customers are all going there now. I put down the goods and walked across the street to see this new store for myself. Inside, I saw the last 2 people I ever wanted to see, Liam Miller and Olivia Parker. Liam saw me walk in, and a look of realization crossed his face. Emma, you've been reborn too, haven't you? I froze, a chill running down my spine as he lowered his voice and continued. I had a dream, one where we got married and started a business together. Now that I see you here, I know it wasn't just a dream. It really happened in my previous life. I wronged Olivia. Heaven must have given me this second chance so I could fix my mistakes. That's why in this life, I can't marry you, Emma. You've already had a lifetime with me. This time it's Olivia's turn. His shameless words were so absurd that I burst out laughing. Do you think you're some kind of treasure, Liam, that everyone's fighting over? You ruined my life in the last one. Do you really think I want to marry you again in this one? In my past life, even though we had a marriage certificate, the woman who truly lived with Liam and bore his child was Olivia. Every time he claimed to be on a business trip or attending a meeting, he was actually at Olivia's house. Looking at the 2 of them now, I felt nothing but disgust. This time, I wouldn't let them have their way. I had spent 30 years alone in an empty house. And yet Liam Miller had the audacity to say I'd had him for a lifetime. Liam furrowed his brows and said, "Since everything is out in the open now, you'd better stop having any improper thoughts about me." Before I could respond, Olivia Parker pushed past the customers at the door and hurried over to Liam. She clung to his arm and declared smugly, "Our Liam has such a great head for business. In just 3 days, we've made a few hundred. It won't be long before we are among the wealthiest in town." Liam looked at her dotingly. "That's because my Olivia is amazing. You managed to find clothes that are both cheap and good-looking. No wonder we've captured all the business on this street." "Cheap and good-looking?" I turned my head to glance at their shop's inventory, but Olivia immediately stepped in front of me, spreading her arms to block my view. "Emma," she said sharply, "in business we compete fairly. Don't think you can steal any ideas from me. If your shop isn't doing well, maybe you should reflect on your own shortcomings." I gave her a long, hard look before turning away. The goods I sourced from the port were already at the lowest prices available. Yet the clothing in their shop was nearly identical to mine, but sold at prices even lower than my cost. Unable to make sense of it, I decided to ask the owner of the nearby diner for help. I asked him to buy a piece of clothing from Olivia's boutique for me to inspect. "Emma, here's the outfit," my assistant said as she handed me the clothing. I compared it to a similar item from my store. Although the styles were identical, the differences were stark. When placed side by side, the fabric from Olivia's shop was not only inferior, but also emitted a foul chemical odor when held close to the nose. The stitching was messy and uneven. Suddenly, I remembered a black market factory I had heard about in my past life, located inland. It specialized in knockoff clothing. Their stock was cheap and updated quickly, tempting many shop owners to switch from port-source goods. I had been tempted myself. Back then, after inspecting a few samples and finding their quality abysmal, I decided against it. Later, all of that factory's goods began having quality issues. Customers flooded stores demanding refunds. The factory shut down overnight and disappeared without a trace, leaving shop owners with no one to return their stock to. Many businesses went bankrupt as a result. Liam had been focused solely on managing the money and had never paid attention to the merchandise. He didn't remember any of this now. Having been reborn, he was attempting to follow the same path we had taken before, but without my expertise in clothing, he was doomed to fail. Thinking about how Olivia's boutique would face disaster in a few days filled me with excitement. In my previous life, they had conspired to bully me, steal my assets, and drive me to an early grave. This time, I hoped their misfortune would never end. Sure enough, 3 days later, Liam and Olivia were trapped in front of their shop early in the morning, surrounded by angry customers demanding refunds. My assistant came rushing back, her face pale. "Emma, there's trouble. Things have gotten violent over there. Someone might have been killed." I asked calmly, "If it's Liam or Olivia, I might just throw a 3-day banquet to celebrate." When I arrived at the scene, most of the crowd had dispersed. Unfortunately, neither of them was dead. Liam had hit his head while trying to shield Olivia, leaving a gash that bled quite a bit. Olivia, her eyes swollen and red from crying, was gathering the clothes that had been strewn across the ground. Liam sat nearby, bandaged and holding the account book, sighing heavily. "Olivia, where did you source these goods? With this kind of quality, we can't sell them. We still have 800 yuan's worth of stock left. Go get a refund." Olivia froze, scissors in hand, her face turning pale. "Liam, I already tried. When you went to the hospital, I contacted the factory. They've already packed up and run away. They're scammers. I can't find them anymore." Liam shot to his feet and grabbed Olivia, who was crouched on the floor, his face dark with anger. "Didn't you say that factory was reliable? You took all our money to stock up on their goods, and tomorrow's the repayment deadline. The money we just earned is gone. Tell me, what am I supposed to use to repay the loan tomorrow?" It was the first time I'd ever seen Liam lose his temper with Olivia, but Olivia wasn't about to back down. She forcefully shook off his grip, planted her hands on her hips, and shouted back, "Don't pin everything on me, Liam. Didn't I ask for your opinion before I placed the order? My parents had already arranged a stable job for me at a state-owned factory, but you insisted on dragging me into this business. You promised that in just a year we'd be making tens of thousands. If it weren't for you trying to copy Emma and start a clothing shop, none of this would have happened. And now everything's ruined. Liam clenched his fists, his chest heaving with suppressed rage. The moment he took a deep breath, calmed himself, and pulled Olivia into an embrace, he said, all right, it's my fault. I was too impatient and said the wrong thing. Don't be mad, okay? I'm sorry. But the loan repayment is due tomorrow. Didn't you say your parents got you a referral letter for that state-owned factory job? We can sell that letter to get some money to pay off the loan. And with the rest, we can restock inventory. Olivia pushed him away, her eyes filled with confusion and doubt. Liam, didn't you say your family was rich and supported your business? I let the loan slide before, but why are you asking me to sell my job referral to cover the debt now? Liam hesitated for a moment before forcing a strained explanation. It's part of how my parents are testing me. If I can succeed in building a business on my own, they'll let me inherit the family estate. In her previous life, Olivia had spent her days wrapped in Liam's lies. The money she worked so hard to earn had become Liam's ticket to flaunt his supposed wealth in front of her. This time, without her financial support, Liam had grown desperate enough to take out loans. Now he was even trying to get Olivia to cover for him. But Olivia wasn't like her. What she loved was money, not Liam. In the end, she refused to give up her state-owned job referral for cash. The two of them didn't notice me quietly listening from around the corner. I quickly turned away and took another route to leave. After Olivia's boutique closed down, my store returned to normal operations with a steady stream of customers coming through the door. One early morning, as I was heading to the train station to pick up new stock from the port, I unexpectedly ran into Liam and Olivia. The moment they saw me, they followed closely behind as if afraid of losing me. But the station was crowded, and with a few quick maneuvers, I managed to shake them off. Just as I was about to board the train, Liam's anxious voice rang out. Emma, wait for us. Don't be so selfish. Let us go with you to get the goods. Without turning around, I quickly stepped into the train car before the train departed. They managed to push through the crowd and climb aboard, like guards watching over a prisoner. They stayed close to me the entire journey, even standing outside the restroom door whenever I went in, terrified I'd slip away. Late that night, after Olivia had fallen asleep, Liam sneakily shook me awake. Emma, wake up, he whispered. Liam leaned in close and said, I need to talk to you. Annoyed, I opened my eyes and glared at him. Out with it already. He glanced over at Olivia, making sure she was still asleep, then pulled out 200 yuan from his pocket and shoved it into my hand. I'm not asking you to help for free. Here's 200 yuan. Just take us with you to get the goods. It all became clear to me in an instant. Olivia must have finally agreed to sell the referral letter for the state-owned job, so Liam could keep running his business. Seeing that I didn't respond, Liam shifted tactics and began playing the emotional card. After all, we were married in our past life and worked together to build something. Even if there wasn't love, we had a partnership, didn't we? I see you doing so well on your own now, and I'm genuinely happy for you. I'm not asking for much, just help us out this once and take us with you. When he opened his mouth to say more, I waved a hand to cut him off. Fine, I'll help you this once. Even if I refused, they'd find a way to follow me anyway. Besides, 200 yuan was no small amount in this day and age. It was equivalent to 10 months' wages for a laborer. Who would turn down extra money? I stuffed the cash into my pocket, crossed my arms, and closed my eyes again to sleep. The most important thing now was to conserve my energy. The real challenge was sourcing the goods at the port. On the third morning, I led Liam and Olivia to the port. I spent the day haggling and selecting merchandise while they followed closely, trying to learn my methods. They ended up buying twice as much stock as I did. It was Olivia's first time at the port, and everything seemed new and exciting to her. In addition to 2 large bags of goods, she also bought a bag of small trinkets. Once we were done, we headed straight to the train station for the return trip. Olivia, carrying her small bag of purchases, walked happily ahead while Liam lagged behind. drenched in sweat as he struggled under the weight of 2 large bags of goods. His clothes were soaked through and stuck to his skin. Seeing him like that, I couldn't help but chuckle. In our previous life, Liam had always been afraid of hard work, leaving me to travel alone by train to source and carry all the goods. Now he was finally experiencing the hardship I'd endured back then. Liam finally managed to haul the goods onto the train and collapsed into a seat, panting heavily. Sitting beside him, Olivia pulled a water bottle from her bag, unscrewed the cap, and began drinking. Liam instinctively reached out, expecting her to hand him the bottle, but Olivia downed the entire thing herself. Still thirsty, she handed him the empty bottle and said cheerfully, "Liam, go fill this up for me." A flicker of anger flashed in Liam's eyes, but he didn't say anything. He got up and went to fetch water. Meanwhile, I sat in my seat, eating my popsicle and smiling silently. In our past life, Liam had been pampered and cared for by me. This time, having Olivia, a spoiled princess, torment him seemed like fitting karma. After we got off the train, we parted ways. Liam thought that getting the same goods as me would allow him to replicate the success of our previous life, but he couldn't have been more wrong. Running a clothing store wasn't just about having quality merchandise. It was also about style and customer service. Liam, with his arrogant nature, never spoke to customers, preferring to hide in the back counting money. Olivia, on the other hand, was too self-centered to lower herself to charm customers. Shoppers came to spend money, not to be treated poorly. To connect with their clientele, they were doomed to fail. The newly opened Olivia's boutique had barely been in business for a few days when arguments between Olivia and her customers began echoing through the store. Daily, customers who initially visited their shop soon turned to mine instead. With no money coming in, Liam completely lost his patience. He stood at the shop entrance shouting at Olivia, "Olivia, can't you learn something from Emma? You're supposed to be an educated woman, yet you can't even match a country girl." At the mention of my name, Olivia's temper flared instantly. "Well, aren't you something, Liam Miller? I knew there was something going on between you and her back in the village. You couldn't stop entangling yourself with her, and even now when you're with me, you're still thinking about her. You think I'm inferior to her? She's just a country bumpkin. What does she have that I don't? Are you blind?" She jabbed a finger in his face and continued, "How dare you criticize me for running this shop? You didn't even contribute a single penny. It's all money I got by selling my job referral. You're nothing but a freeloading pretty boy." Liam's face turned red with anger. Losing his temper, he snapped back, "Olivia, I regret ever choosing you. All you do is cause trouble. If I were with Emma, I wouldn't have to deal with any of this. She's way more capable than you and could have made me a millionaire within a year." With a loud slap, Olivia's hand connected with Liam's cheek, leaving a glaringly red handprint. "Then go find her. What are you still doing with me?" she screamed, tears streaming down her face as she stormed off, leaving Liam standing there in shock, subject to the judgmental stares of passing pedestrians. That night, I was alone in my shop, quietly taking stock of inventory. The door was ajar when Liam barged in, reeking of alcohol. "Emma, I regret it," he slurred. "Olivia is just a lazy, spoiled brat. She's nothing compared to grace and kindness. She's not someone you can build a life with. Let's get back together like in our past life. We can run the business together and make a fortune. This time, I promise I won't mess things up again. Everything, my money, myself, it'll all be yours." As he spoke, he stepped closer, reaching out to touch my face. Furious, I raised my hand and slapped him hard across the face, the sound echoing in the quiet shop. The fresh red mark on his other cheek matched the one Olivia had given him earlier. When Liam looked up, his face bore 2 prominent handprints. "Emma, if hitting me makes you feel better, go ahead, hit me as much as you want. I don't care if it hurts," he said, staring at me with what he probably thought was a soulful expression. I felt my stomach turn with disgust, realizing he still hadn't sobered up. I grabbed the water cup on the counter and splashed it in his face. "Liam, I've already made it very clear we're impossible. I'm never going to marry you. You really think you can keep mooching off everyone? Wasn't ruining my life enough? In our past life enough? This time I want to stay as far away from you as possible. I don't want anything to do with you. But Liam seemed incapable of understanding human words. He muttered, "I know you're still mad. You're jealous because I picked Olivia this time, aren't you? Don't worry, I don't like her anymore." When I didn't respond, he refused to leave and just sat there like a stubborn child. Left with no other choice, I called the police. The officers arrived quickly and took Liam to the station. Early the next morning, Olivia went to bail him out, and the two ended up having another massive fight that turned into a full-blown brawl. Not long after, Olivia's boutique shut down and was replaced by a breakfast shop. As for where Liam and Olivia ended up, I couldn't care less. I dedicated myself entirely to my clothing business. Over the course of the year, I opened several new branches and hired a significant number of employees. My former assistant, who had grown considerably, was now capable of managing a store on her own, and had been promoted to store manager. In the second year, a few investors approached me. After careful selection, I partnered with one of them to establish a clothing factory and launch our own brand. This allowed us to create an integrated production and sales system. One day, I received a letter from the village chief. Word had reached them that I had become a successful entrepreneur, and they hoped I could contribute to the development of my hometown. I decided to return to the village. When I stepped out of the car, I happened upon a wedding being held in the village. To my surprise, the bride and groom were none other than Liam Miller and Olivia Parker. The village chief, full of enthusiasm, invited me to join the festivities, and I followed the crowd into the ceremony. I wore a strange smile throughout the event. The village chief sighed deeply and filled me in on everything that had happened to them over the past year. After Liam's business in the city failed, a fellow educated youth from Willow Village introduced him to a job in the countryside, and he returned to the village. Olivia, having been kicked out of her family home when her parents discovered she had secretly sold her job referral letter, had spent over 6 months lazing around before ending up penniless. With nowhere to go, she clung to Liam. Initially, Liam refused to marry her, but Olivia devised a scheme to get him drunk and caused such a scene that it involved the village government. Left with no choice, Liam was forced to marry her. After the wedding banquet ended, I personally handed my monetary gift to Liam. He looked at me visibly moved. "Emma, I was forced into this, you know that, right?" I raised a hand to cut him off. "Liam, you're already married to Olivia. Focus on your life with her. What's done is done." I gave him a nod and turned back to my car, intending to spend the night at my old family home. As the car drove off, kicking up a cloud of dust, I caught sight of Olivia in the rearview mirror, glaring at me with gritted teeth. That night, just as I was about to fall asleep, the door to my house burst open and a man stormed in. "What's a little woman like you doing with so much money? How about you submit to me and let me marry you? Then all that wealth will be ours," he sneered under the moonlight, his face twisted with a vile grin. He lunged at me, pinning me down, his intentions all too clear. "You're looking for trouble." I grabbed the water cup from my bedside and smashed it against his head with all my strength. He let out a scream, falling to the floor and clutching his bleeding head. "You crazy woman! Did you have to hit me so hard?" The commotion drew the attention of my neighbors and the village officials, who quickly gathered at my house. The man, terrified by the crowd, confessed everything. It turned out Olivia had paid him 10 yuan to attack me. She claimed that if he ruined my reputation, he could marry me, and my assets would become his in the future. The village chief and officials were furious, afraid that I might pull out of investing in the village. They demanded Olivia apologize immediately. But instead of showing remorse, Olivia screamed like a madwoman. "Why should I apologize? She's nothing but a shameless woman seducing men everywhere she goes. How else could a woman make so much money? She must have done something disgraceful. If I were you, I wouldn't accept this woman's investment. How could you use her money without worrying about losing sleep at night?" Before Olivia could say more, the village chief angrily kicked her to the ground. "Olivia, are you out of your mind?" Liam soon arrived and hurriedly helped Olivia up, dragging her away. Before leaving, he lowered his head and mumbled several apologies to me. The village chief looked at me with a face full of regret. "Miss Emma, we'll handle this properly and give you a satisfactory resolution." I waved my hand dismissively. "Just follow the rules and handle it by the book. Don't worry, The investment will still go forward as agreed in the contract. The next morning, I left the village. Over the next 20 years, the economy developed rapidly. With the memories of my past life, I invested in various industries and far surpassed the wealth I had achieved previously. I reached true financial independence. One day, a villager came to deliver some local specialties to me. During our chat, he mentioned Liam and Olivia's situation. Over the years, the two of them had constant arguments, many of which escalated into physical altercations. Olivia suffered several miscarriages, 4 or 5, and eventually underwent surgery to remove her uterus. Last month she was diagnosed with cancer. However, Liam had failed repeatedly in his business ventures and was drowning in debt, with no money to support her treatment. Olivia was left at home to fend for herself. Hearing this, I fell silent for a long time. Wasn't this the fate I had suffered in my previous life? It turns out that destiny doesn't change. It simply shifts its burden onto someone else. Someone else, whoever marries Liam Miller, will inevitably fall into misfortune that day. I was on my way to the airport to attend an overseas investment project. As my car passed an intersection, I noticed a middle-aged man arguing with the security guard. "You're just a lousy security guard. Do you know who I am? I used to be the boss of a publicly traded company," the man shouted arrogantly. When the man turned his head, I rolled up the car window. "Liam Miller, you're still living in a dream.